Guys, you probably remember the very tragic story of one of the January 6th protesters, Matthew Perna, who took his own life. And I believe it's very important to know the human side of these stories. We have on the podcast his aunt. Her name is Geri Perna. She and Matthew are very close, and she was there for him during this 13-month ordeal after he was arrested for entering the Capitol on January 6th. Geri Perna, you can follow her on Truth Social at just Geri Perna, Geri. The website is rememberingmattperna, Perna.com. Geri, thank you for joining me. This is a tragic story and one that you've been very close to. Let's start by talking about Matt Perna. What kind of a guy was he? And talk a little bit about his personality, but also talk about his beliefs and why he went to Washington, D.C. on January 6th.
Thank you for having me, Dinesh. Matthew was a man who was decades ahead of his time. He was brilliant. He read constantly from the time he was a little boy. He always had a book in his hand. He would go through 1-2 books a day and had an extensive library in his home. Very, very articulate in speaking. He did podcasts on Facebook where he educated people about the benefits of holistic medication instead of going the pharmaceutical route, because his mom had in fact died due to a hospital error 7 years before. And Matt was very much against the pharmaceutical industry and everything that it promoted. So much of his Facebook presence was about CBD oils and alkaline water and eating healthy and really not political in the sense. When Matt started out in taking any interest whatsoever in the elections, he was actually a Bernie Sanders supporter, and we used to go back and forth about that. But it didn't take long, and when President Trump decided to run, Matt was full on board with him, and he did his research. He wasn't one to jump into something. But he believed that Donald Trump was, the right person for the job and supported his presidency. And then when he ran the second time and the election was stolen, Matt believed it was stolen. But he believed that when January 6th rally was coming up, it was not going to be a day of bad things happening. He thought it was going to be a celebration. He thought it was going to be a historical day that he wanted to be part of when the election didn't get certified. And that's why he went to January 6th. He didn't go there with any preconceived notions about rioting or causing any problems or any altercations with police or anything. He went there believing that this historic moment was going to take place, and it ended up being the exact opposite.
Let's talk about that part of it. So Matthew was there on January 6th, and you then immediately following begins the crackdown on the January 6th protesters. Matt gets arrested. Let's talk about what he was charged with doing and give us a feeling for that kind of ordeal, because, I have a little sense of it myself because of a campaign finance case I was involved in. But most ordinary people who don't go through this have no idea of what you're up against. I want you to talk about how Matt dealt with all that and how it reached the tragic point of him taking his life.
Well, when it started out, Dinesh, it was the misdemeanors. It was trespassing, parading, and the attorney that he hired felt that this was an open and shut case. It's a misdemeanor, a slap on the wrist, and that'll be the end of it. And then I think it was about a week and a half went by when the DOJ came back and charged 240 people with the felony charge of obstruction of Congress. And this was mind-boggling to me because I had several videos sent to me from people who were there that showed Matt outside of the building at 2:58 outside, and Congress had adjourned at 2:15. And I brought this to the attention of his attorney. I said he wasn't inside. How could he obstruct if the meeting had been over? And it just didn't matter. It just like every little thing we came up with to dispute their claims, they just squashed them. And while they were doing that, they were squashing my nephew's spirit. He would get ready for a hearing. It could have been a status hearing. It could have been just something minor. And he'd have a suit and tie on, and he'd go to the attorney to be on the Zoom call. And 15 minutes before he left the house, the attorney would call. They canceled it today, Matt. We're going to do it in 2 weeks. 2 weeks would come. They postponed it a week. And it was just constantly having the rug pulled out from underneath him as he's watching them arrest hundreds of people for nothing, grannies walking through. And when Matt went into the Capitol, he was armed with a cell phone. He had a cell phone in his hand. He didn't have any weapons. He didn't break anything. He didn't touch anything. So he was in there for less than 10 minutes, and he went out the back door, and then he posted a video on Facebook, a live video with his friends. And you can go to our website and watch it. But it was the video that ultimately damaged him the most because they took words out of context. Like in the video itself, the way he's talking in it, he's very nonchalant, very, very not rattled or anything. And he tells his listeners, don't worry, it's not over yet. Well, they took that "it's not over yet" as a threat. That was a terroristic threat. And that is what is written in his court papers. There was an emoji of that day when he was there. He put an emoji of an American flag and a firecracker and a bomb. The bomb emoji was listed as evidence as him being a terrorist. Dinesh, Matt never, ever had a parking ticket in his life. He was a very clean-cut kid his entire existence, kind-hearted and generous. And this wore him down. It took him from being this such a strong person and so articulate and so smart to being scared to leave his home. And when he had decided finally to just plead guilty to the charges, his attorney told him he was looking at 6 to 12 months in a federal prison camp. And Matt even started researching federal prison camps. And because Matt taught English in Thailand and South Korea, and he knew different languages, and he was very, very intelligent, he started reading how he could help these inmates get their GED. And that's what he was thinking about. What can he do to be productive while he's in there? So he had resigned himself to 6 to 12 months being okay, even though he didn't commit any crimes. So a week before his sentencing hearing, and this is not a coincidence because nothing they have done so far is a coincidence. His sentencing hearing was scheduled for the anniversary of his mother's death, the same day. And a week before, he called his attorney and he said, I have a bad feeling. Why would they schedule that on the day my mother died? And the attorney says, well, I have some bad news for you. They're planning to add a sentencing enhancement at your hearing, and your hearing has been postponed to April Fool's Day. So once again, the hearing was postponed, and Matt called me, and he was sobbing on the phone. He could barely put a sentence together. He was stuttering. He was scared to death, and that was on that Monday. And I said, Matt, you can't give up here. We can't give up. We have to have faith. We have faith in God. He's not going to let you go to prison. He says, they're going to try to put me away for a lot longer than 6 to 12 months. He said, I can't do it. I said, Matt, don't worry. We've got this. We're going to work through this. Well, that Friday, 5:30 in the afternoon, my phone rang. And it was one of my brothers in Pennsylvania. And he said, Geri, you need to get a plane ticket. Matt just hung himself in his garage. I went into hysterics. And I called his attorney on the phone. And I said, all this time you've been saying, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. I said, you didn't have anything, because I didn't believe his attorney was truly fighting for him. His attorney is a Democrat. And Matt hired him anyway because Matt doesn't see color. He doesn't see party. He just wasn't that way. And he felt that this man with his 42 years of criminal justice experience would have defended him. But instead he threw him there to plead guilty.
Wow, Geri.
And I mean, that was the worst part.
You're saying that little by little they really broke his spirit, and he couldn't
him apart.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing this story. Guys, the website to find out more, Remembering Matt Perna, PERNA.com. Follow Geri Perna on Instagram, Stormwatcher1965, Facebook, Geri Perna, and Truth Social, Geri Perna, GERI. Geri, thank you so much for coming. Please accept my sympathies, and what a horrible ordeal to go through, but thank you for being brave enough to share it.
Dinesh, can I just share one more thing with you?
Sure.
A mom of another J6ers reached out to me about a month ago, and her son is going through the same thing that my Matt went through, and he is suicidal. And if these people that are watching your podcast do not wake up and realize what is happening and how they are robbing these people of their spirit and breaking them down to the point where they don't feel life is worth living, something needs done, and people need to start speaking up, or they're going to find themselves in those shoes one day for perhaps speaking out at a school board meeting or a council meeting. This can happen to anybody. Anybody.
I agree, and I think that there is a strong need for the Republican Party, which is in a position to do something about all this, and probably will be come next Tuesday, to actually get behind it and do something. Thank you very much, Geri. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dinesh.